Okay, so this is going to be our last X-Men Onslaught video. And so with that being said, we're kind of getting into the idea of really seeing things set up for the next few crossovers for the X-Men. Because when it came to Marvel Comics, their main goal was to just have the next crossover ready to go. Like, yes, we just had wrapped up one, we got to get the next one going. And so in this case, with Onslaught being done, we're now working our way up to Operation Zero Tolerance, but also kind of working our way up to the hunt for Xavier as well too. Now, with that being said, this takes place right after you had Charles Xavier go ahead and allow Val Cooper to basically arrest him because, again, it was Charles at fault for what happened in the crossover. Like, it was his mind and the dark side of his mind and the dark side of Magneto that led into the creation of Onslaught. And so for the government and also Charles, they're kind of scared of the possibility there could be a chance that he may turn to Onslaught all over again. And if he does, they have less heroes on the board. And so he allowed Val Cooper to go ahead and arrest him. And that kind of leads into the problem of this storyline because we do pick up with Charles Xavier, right? And we see him in a jumpsuit. Now you think first, like, yeah, we got arrested. So, like, of course, he would be in a jumpsuit. But the problem is that he's no longer with Val Cooper. Instead, he was quickly handed over to Bastion. And when it comes to Bastion at this point in time in Marvel Comics, he had agreed to work with multiple governments across the world to begin Operation Zero Tolerance to go after mutants across the board. But it's also him kind of telling us, like, when he looks at mutants, he don't see mutants as humans. He sees mutants as basically creatures that gotta be put down because how dangerous they truly are. Now, with all that being said, when it comes to Bastion, he's not alone at the moment. You also have Henry Gyrich there as well. But here's the thing. For Henry, he's very confused on why in the world Bastion is treating Charles the way he is currently. Because for Charles, he volunteered to go ahead and turn himself in because what happened in the Onslaught crossover. But right now, it's him seeing Charles on the floor in a jumpsuit, but all these extra security measures put on top of Charles like he's some kind of dangerous creature. Now, you also have Bastion kind of tell us that they're right now working out of a old Hulkbuster facility. So, of course, right now, this will be their base of operations. But either way, for Bastion, he does show Henry like why he believes that Charles Xavier is actually dangerous. And so this kind of leads into Bastion showing Henry Gyrich this videotape. Now, with this videotape, it's really more Bastion interrogating Charles Xavier because for Bastion and Henry Gyrich, they have no idea why in the world Charles Xavier had turned himself in when it came to the whole idea of Onslaught. They have no idea that technically Charles Xavier was Onslaught in that huge event. But with that being said, it's also Bastion trying to prove that what he believes is actually correct. That mutants are dangerous. That mutants are creatures that have to be put down. And that's really final. But it's Charles, of course, disagreeing with Bastion. And every single time you have Bastion try to bring up a point where he believes that he is correct, you have Charles basically shoot him down. And that right there ticks off Bastion a lot. But also, it's Charles saying like, you're basically Hitler. Like, you had agreed to work with different governments across the world to begin to go after a mutant race to hopefully kill off all mutants across the board. Like, basically, you are Hitler. And that right there just makes Bastion angry. And he actually does strike at Charles Xavier. Now, we also learned that for Bastion, he no longer calls Charles Xavier by his actual name. He calls him M13, a prisoner name, but a creature name as well. Now, with that being said, we also learned that there's a young girl there as well being held in that same facility, and that'll be M9. But before we have the chance to learn more about her, we kind of find out that somebody else arrived to help Bastion with Charles Xavier. And that would be a character known as Ingrid Tyson, better known as Dr. Tyson. Now, when it comes to Ingrid, her main goal is to give Charles Xavier full-on psych evaluation, kind of figure out, get more information out of Charles Xavier about the whole idea of the Onslaught event. Now, here's the thing, because at first, when she does arrive, everything does seem a tad bit normal, but then she sees a dead body being carried out, and that kind of begins the process of her wondering what in the you-know-what is going on at this facility. Now, once you do have Bastion show Charles Xavier, she's even more confused because, again, she also heard that Charles had gave himself up. He didn't fight back. He literally said, go ahead and arrest me because I have information about the whole Onslaught event. And so she's kind of wondering, like, why is the man knocked out right now on the ground? Now, with that being said, you do have somebody else there as well that came with Ingrid, but of course, they're not really together. And this person, and that would be Daryl Smith. And Daryl Smith actually first appeared in Wolverine issue number 95, and we barely even talked about him, but he does become somewhat important in a Venom Wolverine crossover that apparently I had just completely forgotten about, so we got to sit down and cover that. With that being said, when it came to that storyline, he was being controlled by a character known as Dirt Nap. Now, you did have Venom Wolverine being able to break him free, but either way, he is a mutant hunter undercover. But right when you have him introduce himself over to Bastion, you then have Bastion realize there's something going on the monitors at his base. Like, he's only seeing teddy bears and rainbows. Now, for Bastion, he believes it's Charles Xavier, but in reality, it's not Charles Xavier. Matter of fact, around this time in Marvel Comics, we were kind of left to believe that Charles Xavier is completely powerless. And so kind of find out it's M9, the other prisoner, the young girl. Now for Nina, that's her name, she has a range of different abilities. Unfortunately, I'm not going to sit down here and try to explain all the different powers that she has, but she kind of realized that Charles Xavier's one a prisoner like her, but also for Charles, he is a good person. But this kind of builds a bond between the two characters. Now, by the time you have Bastion arrive in the room Charles was at, Nina is long gone. She went back to her room. And so for Bastion, he believes it was Charles who had messed with the monitors, no one else. And so this kind of leads into Dr. Tyson kind of giving Charles Xavier a full-on, psych evaluation, because to her, it seems kind of weird this man will go out of his way to turn himself over to the government, but no one knows truly why. It's kind of like, wait a second. Why in the world would you just go ahead and give yourself up to the government? Like, there has to be more to the picture. But the thing is, for Charles, he's not really trying to give her any information at all, especially now because he believed when he said, you know what, go ahead and arrest me, he'll be working with Val Cooper. But instead, he's now with Bastion. And he realized if he does give Bastion any piece of information at all, it would be a major problem. And so, of course, for Charles, he's kind of like, no, I can't tell you anything at all, but also I fear for your safety as well. And so that leads us back over to Bastion and also Henry. Now, for Henry, is him informing Bastion like, listen, M9 does have powers, but the problem is she's an alpha class, meaning that sooner or later, when she gets older, her powers will be way too strong for us to stop. Like, we had to go ahead and get rid of her now. And so, of course, they want to go ahead and kill her. The thing is, they can't do it because if they walk down there, Henry or Bastion, she's going to know what's up and try to escape. So why not go ahead and use somebody else? And that would be Daryl Smith, because Daryl Smith apparently is, untouchable. He has some kind of psi shield around him, which of course protects him from all different types of psychic abilities. And so, of course, that means he has the ability to get close to Nina and actually kill her off. And so that kind of leads us over to Charles Xavier, where he's once again confronted by Nina. Now, Again, here we kind of learn more that Nina has a range of different abilities. Now, it's also Charles beginning to realize there's something going on with Bastion. Let me explain. Because for Nina, she's able to pick on people's emotions, an empath. And so she realized that Bastion is angry, but she can't read his mind. And for Charles, he's kind of like, wait a second. You can't read his mind? That's not okay. But she can also read the mind of Henry. And she kind of realized that sooner or later, these guys are coming after her. But she can read the mind of Charles Xavier. And with her doing that, she learns that he also has the ability to read other people's mind. Now, like I said earlier, for Charles, he believes that he's powerless. He believes. Because Nina says, oh, you believe you're powerless. But the thing is, you're not. Your powers have just been turned off. But I do have the ability to turn your powers back on. Now for Charles, he tells her, don't do that. But he'll kind of realize, wait a second, if she has that kind of ability, what does that mean for her? But then a phone appears. So it kind of left to believe that she has the ability to just, warp reality around them. And so with the phone, you had Charles Xavier call up Renee Machcombe. Now, Machcombe is an old character we saw in the earlier parts of our coverage over the X-Men. Now, just know that she's an old friend of Charles, but also had a hand with things going on with Genosha as well over the years. Either way, it's him calling her to help get Nina the heck out of there. Now, while you have him on the phone, you do have Dr. Tyson realize the monitors that were watching Charles Xavier's room had just went offline again. All she sees is teddy bears and rainbows. And so, of course, she wants to know what's going on. When she walks in there, she finds Charles, but she also finds Nina. Now, with Charles, he tells us Nina is not a mutant. Nina was created in this government facility for who knows what. But that's why she has all these different types of abilities. Here's the problem, though, because for Nina, she is an alpha class threat to the human race. But also, as she gets older, she gets stronger. And so Charles basically taught her in a matter of seconds how to control her powers because she went into Charles' mind. And now it's Charles saying, we got to get her out of here because she is a young girl and we have no idea what they're going to do to her. But you didn't have Nina say, well, I kind of read the minds of different people in this building and they want to DX me. DX means basically kill her off. And so now for Dr. Tyson and Charles, they got to work together to get her the heck out of there. And so this kind of leads into a fast ending because you do have Charles Xavier try his best to distract the guards, Bastion, and also Henry Gyrich long enough to allow Dr. Tyson to get Nina the heck out of there. Except while they were trying to escape, unfortunately, they were confronted by Darrell. And so we're kind of left to believe that Darrell had officially grabbed them and, of course, made them prisoners again. And really, right after we see Darrell, we see Charles not being able to get too far away, so he does get recaptured. We also see that Dr. Tyson has also been captured as well. So kind of left to wonder what happened to Nina. And so we see Darrell hold a bag, a DX bag. And of course, in the bag is Nina. And so we're kind of left to believe that Nina is officially dead. And the helicopter leaves with her dead body. Now for Nina, she's not dead. What happened was that they put her dead body in that bag, but then at the very last second, she was able to sneak off the helicopter and she found Renee and they got the heck out of there. Now for Charles, unfortunately, he is a prisoner again. For Dr. Tyson, she's leaving. She's going somewhere else. But for Bastion and Henry, they believe that Nina is officially dead. But in reality, she is not. Now we're kind of left to wonder, what else is special about this young girl? Because for Charles, he wants to know more about her, but also Daryl Smith as well. But the book does end on that note right there. And technically, that is the end to the whole Onslaught crossover. And so with that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.